There are some places you check into, and some places that check into you. On a rain-soaked stretch of Route 17, hidden between miles of dark pine forest, sat a motel that barely looked open. The sign outside flickered weakly, vacancy. Ethan Cole almost drove past it, but Ethan made a living chasing places exactly like this. Abandoned diners, forgotten highways, motels with stories no one wanted told, and tonight, he had just found another one. The Redwood Pines Motel stood unnaturally still. No cars in the lot. No sound except wind scraping tree branches against the roof. Inside, the lobby smelled of old wood and something faintly metallic. Behind the counter stood a thin man with pale skin and emotionless eyes. His name tag read Harlow. Ethan asked for a room. The man offered 306 or 308. But when Ethan casually asked about room 309, something changed. The manager paused. "We don't rent 309, he said. No explanation, just that. And that was enough. Because nothing attracts curiosity faster than a locked door. Hours later, Ethan stood alone in the hallway, camera in hand. Room 309 was at the very end. Unlike the others, its brass numbers gleamed, almost new. He pressed his ear to the door. Silence. Then suddenly, static. Faint, like an old television turning on. It stopped as quickly as it began. Ethan smiled nervously at the camera. "This just got interesting," he whispered. At exactly 3:09 a.m., Ethan woke up. The television in his room was on. He hadn't turned it on. Static filled the screen. The digital clock beside him blinked. 3:09. The static shifted, slowly forming an image. A hallway. The motel hallway. The footage moved forward, as if someone was walking, holding a camera. His camera. The screen showed the lens stopping in front of room 308. His room. The door opened, and there he was, sleeping. Ethan stared at the screen in disbelief, because in real life, his door had never opened. The image distorted violently, and then the screen went black. Heart racing, Ethan stepped into the hallway. The air felt colder now, thicker. The lights flickered overhead. Room 309 stood slightly open. He didn't remember it being open. Slowly, he pushed it. The room inside was identical to his. Same wallpaper, same bedspread, same clock blinking 3:09. Over and over, as if time refused to move forward. From the bathroom, he heard breathing, soft, steady. He stepped closer. The mirror above the sink was cracked, and written across it in dark letters were 3 words: "You checked in." Behind him, the television roared to life. It showed the motel lobby. Harlow sat at the desk, staring directly into the camera. Then a voice spoke, not from the TV, but from behind him. "You weren't supposed to choose 3:09. Ethan turned. Harlow stood in the doorway, but something about him was wrong. His skin looked pale, stretched too tight, his eyes darker than before. "You check in," Harlow said calmly, "and eventually, the room keeps you." The hallway behind the manager shifted, stretching endlessly, door after door, each one labeled 3:09. Ethan backed away. The door slammed shut, locked. The television screamed with static. On the screen, multiple versions of Ethan pounded on motel doors, all trapped, all desperate. "Every curious guest becomes part of the occupancy," Harlow's voice echoed. Ethan's reflection in the screen slowly turned and smiled, but he wasn't smiling. The version inside the TV leaned closer and whispered, "Trade places." The lights exploded into white, and everything went silent. Morning sunlight filled the motel office. Harlow calmly flipped through his ledger. A car pulled into the lot. A young woman stepped inside with a camera over her shoulder. "Do you have any rooms available?" she asked. Harlow smiled politely. "We have vacancies." Down the hallway, behind a locked door, A television flickered to life. On the screen, Ethan Cole pounded silently against the glass. The clock beside him blinked. 3:09, over and over and over. Some places never let you check out.